Hi, Dan Stein. Fair. I'm back here for the third installment in this little dissertation. Thanks for sticking with me this long. Listen, the Supreme Court is going to decide a very important case involving SB 1070 in Arizona. This case really involves many of the major provisions of SB 1070, and we are anxiously awaiting the results. A favorable outcome in this case could green light states all over the country from passing similar bills and really put the Obama administration on the defensive. As I mentioned, that case is going to be argued next month and probably decided in the fall. The outcome could have a big impact on how the state and local immigration issue plays out in this election. It's very important you keep your eye on it. Charles Schumer is planning to hold a hearing the day before the oral arguments in a cynical effort once again to try to manipulate the judicial process. But this case will be very important in this Supreme Court term. Now, there are some unknown variables, of course, in 2012. There always can be violence, terror attacks. We had somebody here who had immigrated and had lived here for many, many years who was arrested planning to attack the U.S. Capitol. We obviously have an immigration assimilation problem. The people coming here and live here for so many years decide they want to turn around and blow up the Capitol. There are always these factors that we can't anticipate, but the long-term and persistent structural unemployment that we face as a nation is likely to keep the immigration issue front and center as soon as the media, or some of the media, if you will, stop giving the Obama administration a pass on what are very clearly very controversial and unpopular policies. But the public can't register any objection to them unless they know about them. So one of the things we're going to have to be working on, and you're going to have to be working on, is being in the media, calling talk radio, writing your letters to the editor, and otherwise vocalizing your objections to the administration's amnesty program. So the legislative picture is basically one of, well, one of the things we need to be careful of is that some of these bills that are floating around the Senate and the House might merge and float into an omnibus bill, perhaps even in the lame duck session. There's always a strong possibility that, for various reasons, some of these special interest bills may get to the floor in the House and the Senate. The Senate is also very hard to control. It's a mixed bag in terms of its procedural process. So the Irish amnesty, the removal of the country per country cap limitations that are being discussed as a sop to some business interests, primarily beneficiaries would be from India and China. These bills have strong business support, and they could move and provide the vehicle for other bills that we know that Chuck Schumer and the Democrats want to push in the Senate, particularly the DREAM Act. This is the, well, it's a big mass amnesty masquerading as a special, narrow, tailored provision for people brought here as kids, but it in fact covers millions of people. So the DREAM Act is something they're going to be pushing very hard, and we would not be surprised to see that coming up in the Senate. So you and I need to keep an eye on that, and you continue to be writing your congressmen and women and talking about the need for important immigration controls and state and local enforcement and, of course, Real ID and the E-Verify system. If there is a lame duck session, as there likely would be, that's a danger zone. That's when a lot of these bills can get merged into something omnibus or attached to something omnibus in a lame duck session. That's probably going to be one of the most dangerous periods for our movement. And so what I need you to do is begin preparing for that process by by conceiving different scenarios where the legislation could get merged into something during the lame duck session, and plan to be on your toes and part of our legislative reaction network in December, November and December of 2012. Because even if Obama is not reelected, or in fact, perhaps especially if he's not reelected, there are many Republicans who would say, well, this might be a good time to get this amnesty bill off the table, so why don't we go ahead and pass it in a lame duck session and let Obama claim all the credit. This is a very difficult time because, politically speaking, it's been a long time. It may be unprecedented in American history that we've had political parties now, particularly the Democrats, politicizing the immigration issue in order to try to create a wedge and trying to convince, in a very cynical and negative fashion, Latino voters that somehow immigration control has something to do with ethnicity or race. The way the politics are being discussed now is really a national disgrace. Immigration was usually considered to be one of those big issue and large view of the national interest topics, and that has changed. One of the reasons why it's so important to be a part of FAIR, be a member of FAIR, a participant, join our legislative action team, get our action alerts, is that FAIR is one of the very few places where you can get the truth about immigration policies, how they operate in fact, how they're going to be implemented, and what you can do to change these things in the future. Never have the challenges been so great. Never has an administration so completely abdicated its responsibilities to enforce the law. The implications with respect to the Obama administration's enforcement policy are huge, and downstream they will be with us for generations. The country will not be able to sustain itself unless it has better and more effective immigration controls. So please, please continue to help FAIR, work with FAIR, listen to our podcasts, listen to our videos, read our action alerts, take the actions. 2012 is going to be a very challenging period, and there's not a moment to lose. Thanks so much.